"Excuse me," I said, my voice sharper than I intended. "What are you doing in our house?" Aunt Lisa looked at me with this condescending smile that made my skin crawl. "Our house? Sophia? Sweetheart, you're just a kid. You can't possibly think you can maintain this place with 3 boys and no income. This is our family home," I said firmly. "My father left it to us." "Did he?" she chimed in, her voice dripping with fake sweetness. "Because we've been going through his papers and we don't see any will or documentation that says that." My heart dropped into my stomach. In all the chaos of funeral arrangements and trying to comfort my 3 younger brothers, I hadn't even thought to look for legal documents. How could I have been so naive to think that family would actually care about us during the darkest moment of our lives? 5 days. They gave us 5 days to pack everything we owned and leave the only home my brothers had ever known. Before I continue with this story that will shake you to your core, please hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and let me know in the comments what country you're watching from. Because what happened to us could happen to anyone, and you need to hear how we survived when the people we trusted most betrayed us in the worst possible way. My name is Sofia Martinez, and this is the story of how my own family tried to destroy us and how we discovered a secret that changed everything. I'm 29 now, sitting in my corner office in downtown Phoenix, but when I close my eyes, I can still feel the suffocating dampness of that tiny studio apartment where I somehow managed to keep my 3 brothers together when our entire world collapsed. People always ask me how I managed to do it. How does an 18-year-old girl suddenly become responsible for 3 grieving boys with absolutely no resources and no help? The honest truth is, there were moments I thought we wouldn't make it. There were nights I stared at the ceiling wondering if my brothers would be better off without me. But I had made them a promise, and I've never broken a promise in my life. Let me take you back to where this nightmare began. When my father, Carlos Martinez, died suddenly from a stroke at just 42 years old, it felt like someone had ripped the foundation right out from under our feet. Dad had been our rock, our provider, our protector. He worked construction during the day and drove for a rideshare company at night, doing everything he could to give us a good life. My biological mother, Rosa, had died in a car accident when I was 6 years old. I have fragments of memories of her laugh, the way she smelled like vanilla and cinnamon, but mostly I knew her through the stories Dad would tell us and the pictures he kept on his dresser. 3 years after Mom died, Dad married Elena, a gentle woman who never tried to replace my mother, but loved me like I was her own flesh and blood. Elena gave Dad 3 sons who became the light of his world. Miguel was 14 when Dad passed away, quiet and thoughtful, always reading books and asking deep questions about everything. Carlos Jr., who we called CJ, was 12 years old, the class clown who could make anyone laugh even on their worst day. And then there was little David, only 9 years old, still small enough to crawl into my lap when he was scared, with the biggest brown eyes and the sweetest heart you've ever seen. Elena was completely devoted to Dad. She had given up her career as a nurse to stay home with the boys, and watching her try to cope with his death was like watching someone slowly disappear. She stopped eating, stopped sleeping, barely spoke to any of us. 2 months after Dad's funeral, Elena died in her sleep. The doctors said it was heart failure, but I knew the truth. She had died from a broken heart. In the span of 8 weeks, I went from being a high school senior planning for college to being the only adult figure in the lives of 3 devastated boys. But what happened next showed me just how cruel people can be when they smell opportunity in tragedy. The morning after Elena's funeral, Aunt Lisa showed up at our front door with her husband, Robert, and their daughter, Nicole. Aunt Lisa was Dad's older sister, a woman I had never felt comfortable around, even as a child. There was something calculating in her eyes, something cold that made me keep my distance whenever she visited. "Sophia, honey," she said with that fake, concerned voice that made my skin crawl. "We need to have a serious conversation about what happens now. The boys need stability. They need proper adult supervision. You're barely 18 years old. How do you expect to take care of 3 children? I can take care of them," I said firmly. "Dad raised me to be responsible. We're family. We stay together." Uncle Robert stepped forward, his arms crossed. "Be realistic, Sophia. You have no job, no income, no experience raising children. These boys deserve better than what you can provide. We're prepared to take them in, give them proper homes with adults who can actually support them." The way he said it made my blood run cold. Proper homes, plural. They weren't talking about keeping my brothers together. They were talking about splitting them up. Miguel stepped out of the kitchen where he had been listening. "We're not going anywhere," he said, his voice steady despite being only 14. "Sophia is our family. We stay with her." CJ and David appeared behind him, both looking scared but determined. David ran to me and grabbed my hand. "I don't want to go anywhere else," he whispered. "I want to stay with you." Aunt Lisa's expression hardened. "You children don't understand how the real world works. This house has a mortgage. There are bills to pay. Sophia can't possibly handle all of that responsibility. We're trying to help you." But I could see it in her eyes. This wasn't about helping us. This was about something else entirely. And every instinct I had was screaming that we were in danger. That night, after they left, with promises to return the next day with proper paperwork, I called Dad's best friend Manuel, hoping he might have some insight into what we should do. What he told me made my hands shake. "Sophia," Manuel said, his voice heavy with concern, "your father talked to me just a few weeks before he died. He was worried about something. He said if anything ever happened to him, I should make sure you kids were protected from certain family members. He never said who specifically, but he seemed genuinely concerned about someone trying to take advantage of you." "Take advantage of us how?" I asked. "I don't know, mija, but your father was a smart man. He always planned ahead. He mentioned having important papers in a safety deposit box, but I don't know where or how to access it. He said everything would be clear when the time came, but then he was gone so suddenly. After I hung up, I couldn't sleep. Something wasn't adding up. Dad had been meticulous about planning, always talking about making sure we were taken care of if something happened to him. But according to Aunt Lisa and Uncle Robert, he had left us with nothing but debt and a mortgage we couldn't afford." The next morning, they returned with a man in an expensive suit who introduced himself as Mr. Henderson, supposedly a lawyer handling Dad's estate. He had official-looking documents that claimed Dad had died without a will, leaving his affairs in complete disorder. "According to these papers," I said, reading through the legal jargon, "Dad owed more money than this house is worth. That can't be right. He was always careful with money." Mr. Henderson barely looked at me when he responded. "I'm sorry, Miss Martinez, but debt has a way of accumulating. Your father may have hidden the extent of his financial problems to protect you children from worrying, but something about his demeanor felt wrong. He wouldn't make eye contact with me, and he seemed nervous, constantly checking his watch like he wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. Within a week, they had somehow obtained temporary legal guardianship of my brothers. Within 2 weeks, our family home was listed for sale to supposedly pay off Dad's debts. I was given 5 days to pack our belongings and find somewhere else to live. The night before we had to leave, I sat with Miguel, CJ, and David in our empty living room, surrounded by boxes and the echoes of all the memories we had made in that house. "Listen to me," I said, fighting back tears. "I don't know what's happening or why these people are doing this to us, but I promise you something right now. We are going to stay together no matter what. I will work as many jobs as it takes. I will sacrifice whatever I have to sacrifice. You three will never go hungry, and you will never be separated. That's my promise to you." Miguel nodded, trying to be strong. "We believe you, Sophia. We trust you." CJ, who usually had a joke for every situation, was unusually quiet. "Are we going to be okay?" he asked in a small voice. "We're going to be more than okay," I said, hoping I sounded more confident than I felt. "We have something they can't take away from us. We have each other." David climbed into my lap one last time in our family home. "I love you, Sophia," he whispered. "I love you too, baby, and I'm going to take care of all of you. No matter what happens, we're going to make it through this together." That night, I made a silent promise to my father's memory and to my mother's spirit. Whatever it took, however long it took, I would protect these boys and keep our family together. I had no idea that this was just the beginning of a journey that would test every ounce of strength I had, and that the people who had torn our world apart were hiding a secret that would change everything. We moved into a cramped one-bedroom apartment on the wrong side of Phoenix that I found through a desperate Craigslist search. The rent was $900 a month, which seemed impossible on the part-time retail job I'd managed to get at a local grocery store, but it was all we could afford with my limited credit and no references. The apartment smelled like old cigarettes and had water stains on the ceiling, but it had 4 walls and a roof, which was more than we'd had guaranteed just days before. The landlord, Mrs. Chen, was a tired-looking woman in her 60s who took pity on us when I explained our situation. She let us move in with just half the security deposit when I promised to pay the rest within 2 months. I had no idea how I was going to keep that promise, but I made it anyway. That first night in our new reality, I lay awake on the pull-out couch that served as my bed, listening to my 3 brothers breathe in the single bedroom we'd somehow managed to fit 3 twin mattresses into. I had exactly $237 in my checking account, 3 growing boys to feed, and no idea how we were going to survive. But I was determined to try. I dropped out of my senior year of high school the following week and started working every hour I could get. Mornings, I stocked shelves at the grocery store for $11 an hour. Afternoons, I cleaned houses for families in Scottsdale who paid cash and didn't ask too many questions about my situation. Evenings and weekends, I babysat for anyone who would hire me, sometimes bringing David along when the families didn't mind. The boys had to change schools, transferring from their comfortable suburban district to overcrowded inner-city schools that were falling apart and understaffed. I watched them struggle to adjust, saw how they tried not to complain about sharing a bedroom or eating generic cereal for dinner 3 nights in a row. Miguel stepped up in ways that broke my heart and made me proud at the same time. At 14, he started doing the grocery shopping with the list I'd make and the carefully counted cash I'd give him. He learned to cook basic meals and helped CJ and David with their homework when I was working late. He never complained, never asked for anything, just quietly became the man of the house in ways no teenager should have to. CJ used humor to cope with our new reality, making jokes about our cramped living situation and finding ways to make David laugh even when we were eating ramen noodles for the 4th night in a row. "Hey, Sophia," he'd say with that grin that could light up any room. "You think if we eat enough of these noodles, we'll turn into spaghetti people?" I could be linguini CJ. David had the hardest time adjusting. He'd gone from being the protected baby of a comfortable family to living in poverty almost overnight. He started having nightmares and would crawl into my bed in the middle of the night, whispering, "Are we going to be okay, Sophia?" I'd hold him close and whisper back, "We're going to be just fine, baby," even though I wasn't sure I believed it myself. By our 2nd year in that apartment, I had developed a routine that kept us barely afloat. I was working about 65 hours a week across 3 different jobs, sleeping maybe 4 hours a night, and surviving on coffee and pure determination. The boys were doing well in school despite our circumstances. Miguel maintained honor roll grades, CJ made the soccer team, and David joined the school choir where his sweet voice earned him solo parts in concerts. But the stress was destroying me physically and mentally. I lost weight I couldn't afford to lose because I often gave my portions to the boys. I developed chronic headaches from exhaustion and worry. I hadn't been on a date or had any kind of social life since we'd moved to that apartment. My entire world revolved around work and keeping my brothers fed and safe. One particularly brutal winter evening, I came home from my 3rd job to find that our heat had been shut off. I'd been late on the utility payment, and despite my pleading phone calls, the gas company had cut our service. It was December in Phoenix, which meant it wasn't freezing, but the desert gets cold at night, and our thin walls did nothing to keep the chill out. I sat in my car outside our apartment building and cried until my chest hurt. I had $18 in my account. Rent was due in 3 days. David had been coughing for a week, and I was worried he needed to see a doctor, but we'd lost our health insurance when I dropped out of school. For the first time since this nightmare had started, I considered calling Aunt Lisa. Maybe they were right. Maybe the boys would be better off with adults who could actually provide for them, who could give them warm homes and regular meals and medical care when they needed it. But then I remembered the cold calculation in Aunt Lisa's eyes, the way she'd talked about splitting them up, the speed with which they dismantled our lives. Something wasn't right about any of it, and every instinct I had told me my brothers weren't safe with those people. I dried my tears, went inside, and turned it into an adventure. "We're camping," I announced. "Indoor camping in December. Who wants to build a fort out of blankets?" We huddled together under every piece of fabric we owned, and for a few hours, it felt like we were a real family again. CJ told ridiculous stories that made us all laugh. Miguel read to us by flashlight from a library book. David fell asleep in my arms, and I held him close, feeling his steady heartbeat against my chest. That night, after my brothers were asleep, I started writing everything down in a notebook. Every detail I could remember about Dad's finances, about the meetings with Aunt Lisa and Uncle Robert, about the lawyer who wouldn't look me in the eye. I didn't know why I was documenting it all, but something told me I might need this information someday. The boys and I created our own traditions to make our tiny apartment feel like home. Sunday mornings were pancake mornings, no matter how tight money was. I always made sure we had the ingredients for pancakes because it was our one guaranteed luxury each week, and we made it special with whatever toppings we could afford. When Miguel turned 16, I couldn't buy him a car or throw him a big party, but I saved for 2 months to get him a nice watch from a pawn shop. Every Martinez man needs a good watch, I told him, remembering something Dad used to say. Miguel cried when he opened it, not because it was expensive, but because he understood what it represented. All the extra shifts I'd worked, all the meals I'd skipped to save that money. Sophia, he said, his voice thick with emotion, you don't have to sacrifice everything for us. We understand our situation. You're my brother, I interrupted. You deserve nice things. You deserve everything Dad would have given you. CJ's 16th birthday was different. He'd been talking about wanting to ask a girl to a school dance, but he was embarrassed that he didn't have nice clothes or money for tickets. I worked overtime for 3 weeks straight and bought him a sharp button-down shirt and saved enough for the dance tickets and dinner beforehand. You look so handsome, I told him as he got ready. Dad would be so proud of the young man you've become. Thanks, Mom, he said, then caught himself. I mean, Sophia, sorry. It's okay, I whispered, though my throat closed up with emotion. It's okay. David was different from his brothers, more artistic and sensitive, with a beautiful singing voice that reminded me of Mom. When he was 13, his choir teacher told me he had real talent and should consider voice lessons. I couldn't afford professional instruction, but I found a retired music teacher who was willing to trade lessons for house cleaning services. The first time I heard David perform a solo at a school concert, his pure, clear voice filling the auditorium and making everyone go completely silent, I cried right there in the audience. Mrs. Chen, who had become like a grandmother to us over the years, squeezed my hand. You've raised incredible boys, she whispered. You should be proud. I am proud, I whispered back. So incredibly proud. By the time I was 24, we'd been living in survival mode for 6 years. I was exhausted in ways that sleep couldn't fix, running on willpower alone. The boys were thriving despite our circumstances. Miguel was a senior with college scholarships within reach. CJ was excelling in both academics and soccer. David was winning regional singing competitions and had dreams of studying music, but I was falling apart. I'd developed stomach problems from stress and irregular eating. I'd lost too much weight and had dark circles under my eyes that no amount of concealer could hide. I hadn't had a real conversation with anyone my own age in years. My entire identity had become taking care of my brothers, and while I didn't regret it, I was drowning. One evening, I collapsed at work, just fell over while restocking shelves, and everything went black. I woke up in the emergency room with Mrs. Chen holding my hand and my 3 brothers looking terrified in the corner. You're malnourished and exhausted, the doctor told me. When's the last time you had a full meal or 8 hours of sleep? I couldn't answer because I honestly couldn't remember. Sophia, Miguel said when we got home, this has to stop. You're killing yourself for us. I'm fine, I insisted, but we all knew I wasn't. No, you're not, CJ said firmly, and we can't lose you too. We won't survive without you. David, now 15 and nearly as tall as me, put his arms around me. We need to find another way, he said. You've given us everything, but we need you healthy and alive more than we need anything else. That night, I had the breakdown I'd been holding back for years. I sobbed until I couldn't breathe, mourning not just my parents, but the life I'd given up, the dreams I'd sacrificed, the youth I'd lost. My brothers held me while I cried, and for the first time since our world had collapsed, I let them take care of me instead. I'm scared, I admitted through my tears. I'm scared I'm not enough. I'm scared I'm failing you. Are you serious? Miguel said. Sophia, you saved us. You kept us together when everyone said it was impossible. You're the strongest person we know. We're going to make it, CJ added. All of us, together. And someday, David said with wisdom beyond his years, we're going to make sure you never have to worry about taking care of everyone else ever again. We're going to take care of you. It was CJ who first started asking questions about Dad's estate. He was 17 by then, taking advanced placement classes, and had become curious about legal procedures after studying government and economics. Sophia, he said one evening while we were eating dinner, I've been thinking about when Dad died. In Arizona, when someone dies without a will, there are specific legal processes that have to be followed. Public notices, court filings, official documentation. I can't find any record of Dad's estate going through probate court. I looked up from the bills I was trying to figure out how to pay. What do you mean? I mean, if Aunt Lisa and Uncle Robert really were appointed as our guardians through the legal system, there should be paperwork, court records, official documentation, but there's nothing. It's like Dad's estate was handled completely outside the legal system. Miguel leaned forward, his expression serious. That's not possible, is it? If they had legal authority over us, if they sold our house legally, there would be a paper trail. CJ nodded. Exactly. And I've been thinking about something else. Remember how quickly everything happened? Most estate proceedings take months, sometimes years. But they had us out of our house and the property sold within 3 weeks. That's almost impossible unless they already knew what they were doing before Dad even died. A chill ran down my spine. What are you saying? I think we need to start investigating what really happened to Dad's estate, Miguel said quietly, because I don't think anything they told us was true. That investigation changed everything. Over the next several weeks, my brothers and I dove deep into public records, court filings, and anything we could find about Dad's supposed estate proceedings. What we discovered made my blood run cold. CJ was right. There was no record of our father's estate ever going through probate court. No public notices, no official appointments of guardianship, no court-supervised sale of our family home. Everything Aunt Lisa and Uncle Robert had done was completely outside the legal system. But that wasn't the worst part. When I finally worked up the courage to contact Dad's former employer, a construction company called Desert Ridge Development, I learned something that shattered my understanding of our entire situation. Your father wasn't just an employee here, the human resources manager told me over the phone. Carlos was a partner in this company. He owned 30% of Desert Ridge Development, and when he passed away, that partnership was supposed to transfer to his beneficiaries according to his will. My hands started shaking. What will? According to our family, he died without any legal documents. There was a long pause. Miss Martinez, your father came in here just 2 months before he died to update his partnership agreement and his will. He was very specific about wanting to protect his children's future. He said he had concerns about certain family members who might try to take advantage if something happened to him. The room started spinning around me. How much was his partnership worth? At the time of his death, his 30% stake was valued at approximately $4.2 million. Plus, he had life insurance policies, savings accounts, and investment portfolios we helped him set up. Your father was a wealthy man, Miss Martinez. His estate should have been worth well over $6 million. I hung up the phone and immediately called my brothers into our tiny living room. When I told them what I'd learned, the silence was deafening. $6 million? David whispered, his voice barely audible. They stole $6 million from us? Miguel's jaw was clenched with anger I'd never seen before. While we've been living in poverty, eating ramen noodles and having our utilities shut off, they've been living off our inheritance. CJ stood up and started pacing. This explains everything. Why they moved so fast, why they wouldn't let us see any paperwork, why that lawyer wouldn't look you in the eye. They knew exactly what they were doing. But finding out the truth and proving it were two completely different things. We had no money for lawyers, no idea how to navigate the legal system, and we were up against people who had already demonstrated they were willing to commit massive fraud to steal from orphaned children. That's when fate intervened in the form of Sarah Rodriguez, a young attorney who had just started her own practice and was looking for cases that could make a difference. I found her through a legal aid clinic, and when I told her our story, her eyes lit up with the fire of someone who genuinely cared about justice. This is one of the most outrageous cases of estate fraud I've ever heard of, she told me after reviewing the evidence we'd gathered. But we're going to need more proof. We need to find your father's real will and the documentation of his business partnership. The breakthrough came when Sarah tracked down Mr. Henderson, the supposed lawyer who had handled Dad's estate. It turned out he wasn't a lawyer at all. He was a paralegal who had been disbarred 3 years earlier for falsifying documents. When Sarah confronted him with the evidence of his fraud, he broke down completely. They paid me $15,000 to forge those estate documents, he sobbed. I was desperate, about to lose my house. They said the kids would be better off with proper guardians anyway. I never thought about what I was really doing to those children. What documents did you create? Sarah demanded. Everything. The fake debt records, the forged death certificate claiming no will existed, the fraudulent guardianship papers. Carlos Martinez had a comprehensive estate plan, but they made me destroy it all and create fake documents showing he died, broke, and intestate. Where is the real will? Sarah pressed. Hidden in a safety deposit box at First National Bank downtown. Carlos gave me the key and told me it was insurance in case his family ever tried to challenge his wishes. I still have it. Armed with Mr. Henderson's confession and the key to Dad's safety deposit box, we finally uncovered the truth. Dad hadn't just planned for our future. He had protected it with an elaborate trust structure designed specifically to prevent family members from stealing our inheritance. The real will was 47 pages long and detailed exactly how our father wanted his assets distributed. There was a trust fund worth over $7 million that was supposed to provide for our education, housing, and living expenses until we each turned 25. There were specific instructions that I was to be our legal guardian with financial oversight from professional trustees. But the most shocking discovery was a letter Dad had written to us, to be opened only if his estate was ever contested. Sarah read it aloud in her office while my brothers and I cried. My dearest children, if you are reading this, then someone has tried to steal your inheritance and destroy the future I worked so hard to build for you. I pray that Sophia has been strong enough to keep you together, because I know in my heart that she would never let our family be broken. The trust I have established will ensure that you never want for anything. Sophia, you have enough money to go to college, to pursue your dreams, and to give your brothers every opportunity they deserve. Miguel, CJ, and David, your education funds are secure, and there is money set aside for each of you to start your adult lives without financial worry. But more than the money, I want you to remember that you are Martinez children. We don't give up, we don't abandon each other, and we don't let anyone tear apart what love has built. Take care of each other, support each other's dreams, and never forget that your mother and I are proud of the people you've become. All my love forever, Dad. The legal battle that followed was intense but swift. With Mr. Henderson's confession, the forged documents, and the discovery of Dad's real estate plan, Aunt Lisa and Uncle Robert's fraud was impossible to deny. They had spent 6 years living off money that belonged to orphaned children while watching us struggle in poverty. The court not only ordered the immediate release of our trust funds, but also imposed additional penalties for the pain and suffering they had caused us. The house they had claimed was worthless and sold to pay fake debts was actually worth $800,000 and had been sold to a company Uncle Robert secretly owned. But the real justice came when the district attorney decided to file criminal charges. Aunt Lisa, Uncle Robert, and the fake lawyer all faced felony fraud charges. Watching them get arrested was one of the most satisfying moments of my life, not because I enjoyed their downfall, but because it meant they could never do this to another family. The money changed our lives instantly, but it couldn't erase the habits we'd developed during 6 years of poverty. For months, we all hoarded food, left lights on all night, and checked our bank balances obsessively. It took time to believe that our security was real and permanent. The first thing I did was buy us a house, not a mansion, but a beautiful 4-bedroom home in a safe neighborhood with a big kitchen and a backyard where we could finally breathe. After 6 years in that cramped apartment, having space and natural light felt like a miracle. Miguel transferred to Arizona State University to finish his engineering degree. CJ got into the University of Arizona on both academic and athletic scholarships. David was accepted to the prestigious Berklee College of Music in Boston. Suddenly, all their dreams were possible. As for me, I discovered I had a talent for business and investment. I started small, buying and renovating rental properties, then expanded into restaurants and retail. By 27, I had built my own company worth millions of dollars, but our greatest success was that we stayed together through everything. Today, at 29, I look back on those 6 years of struggle with a mixture of pain and gratitude. The poverty was brutal, but it forged us into people we might never have become otherwise. Miguel is now one of the most successful young engineers in Arizona, but he's also humble, generous, and devoted to family. CJ finished college and now runs youth sports programs for underprivileged kids, using his experience to help other families in crisis. David's music career has taken off beyond our wildest dreams, and he uses his platform to advocate for foster children and families in poverty. We established the Carlos Martinez Foundation in Dad's memory, providing emergency assistance to families facing sudden hardship and helping siblings stay together in the system. Every family we help feels like a victory against the forces that tried to break us. Last month, I received a letter from Aunt Lisa, written from the minimum security prison where she's serving her sentence. It was full of excuses and self-pity, claiming she was just trying to protect us from making mistakes with money we were too young to handle. I threw it away without finishing it. The truth is, we were never too young to deserve our inheritance. We were never too young to deserve honesty from the people who were supposed to protect us. And we were certainly never too young to deserve love instead of greed from our own family. People often ask me if I regret those years of struggle, if I wish things had been different. The honest answer is complicated. I regret that my brothers had to see their sister work herself to exhaustion. I regret the fear, the uncertainty, the nights we went hungry. But I don't regret becoming the person those struggles made me. I don't regret the unbreakable bond those hardships created between us. We learned that love is stronger than greed, that family isn't just about blood relations, and that keeping promises matters more than personal comfort. Most importantly, we learned that no matter how dark things get, there's always hope if you refuse to give up on each other. Today, my brothers and I are living proof that justice eventually prevails, that truth has a way of surfacing, and that the people who try to destroy others often end up destroying themselves. We didn't just survive what was done to us, we thrived. And every day, we wake up grateful for the journey that brought us here, even the painful parts, because they taught us who we really are. We are the Martinez family. We are survivors, we are unbreakable, and we are living testimony that love, in the end, always wins. If this story moved you, please subscribe to this channel, hit that like button, and share it with someone who needs to hear that hope is never lost. Drop a comment below, telling us what country you're watching from, and what part of our story resonated most with you. We post inspiring stories every day, so make sure to hit that notification bell. Until next time, remember that your current situation is not your final destination. Keep fighting, keep believing, and never give up on the people you love.